Thanks everyone for joining us. It is 10 o'clock on the dot, so we are going to go ahead and get started. We did want to invite you or to welcome you to, Pam, our fifth session. I think this
Wow.
is the Pam Selberg SBA show, but we are incredibly grateful for our EIDL PPP Open Q&A with Pam Selberg of the SBA. Hey, today's session is going to be recorded, so we'll make sure that you get that recording. So if there's any questions that you weren't really following or have any additional follow-up, we invite you to type in your questions in either the chat box or the Q&A, and we will make sure to get those addressed. So that's really what we're here for today. So my name is Michelle Kane, and I'm the director of the SDCEO Women's Business Center. Our job and purpose is to help women launch new businesses and grow their business and gain leadership skills. And we've been very busy. There's a lot going on right now. And yes, there is a need for capital and a need for financial direction and expertise, which is why we have Pam here. There's also a need for pivoting and reinventing your business. So SDCEO, we're going to be launching a series of webinars that are going to be focused on what that looks like and where we can help. I also do one-on-one business advising, and if you would like to make an appointment, we do this obviously via Zoom or phone. It's free and confidential, and if you are ready to move your business to that next phase or need some help with some PR or marketing or repivoting or looking at your business model, we are here to help you. So we're going to be posting all of our contact information in the chat box. So you'll have that for reference. And again, we are here as a resource to you. I also am seeing that some people are typing in some questions, and that's great. So keep that going. I'd also like to introduce Dina Sandage, who is wearing two hats today. She is the assistant director for the SDCEO, and she's also the representative for the Veterans Business Outreach Center of the Dakotas, and both WBC, SDCEO, all these acronyms, I know, and VBOC are sponsoring our seminar and our webinar today. So just wanted to introduce Dina, and if you could tell us a little bit about VBOC.
Okay. Yep. So the Veterans Business Outreach Center, we are just another resource through the SBA that we offer our assistance to veterans, maybe active military that are coming out. We do specific training out at the bases, and we do also counseling, but my manager up in North Dakota, because we are the VBOC of the Dakotas, she'll do the counseling. So if you ever have any questions, if you're a veteran and need some assistance there, I can get you her contact.
Thanks, Dina. And I did put everyone's contact information, including Wendy Klug, who is the manager of VBOC, in the chat, so people do have those contacts. I would like to turn it over to Pam Selberg, who is the Senior Area Manager for the SBA, and really here as a resource for all of you. There's so many changes that are happening, Pam. Maybe you can give us a quick update on the EIDL program and PPP, and then we've already got a ton of questions, so we can just jump into that. So welcome, Pam, and thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and do another morning weekly chat next week, but we'll go over that with you later. Thanks again for having me. I know that this is uncharted times for everybody, not only in the face of our business, but, you know, what does it mean to open up again? What does it mean to, you know, relax some of the shelter in place rules? What does that do for my business? How does that look going forward? And so we're all in this together. So please use the chat and the Q&A as an opportunity to hopefully allow me to help you navigate down this path a little bit smoother. A couple of changes that we had over the week I was tasked with talking a little bit about the Express program. So the Express has two sides to it. We have the actual Express Bridge Loan Program. That is the disaster side of the Express program. That's a $25,000 loan that is done through your local lender and it is to help you for items that normally would not have been covered under the PPP program. So you would have to talk to your local lender about looking at that express program. The reason why it's at $25,000 is because there's no collateral, and it's totally an SBA program, and it's a program to help you get emergency funds to help you open your doors, and that's called the Express Bridge Loan Program, done through your local lender. Now, with that being said, we have a non-disaster program called the Express Loan that has now gone from, originally the maximum that you could get on that line of credit was $350,000, but now that's gone up to $1 million. That just recently was increased. And as a part of that increase, veterans now do not have to pay the upfront guarantee on a veterans program, do not have to pay the upfront guarantee on that program. Again, the Express Bridge Loan Program and the actual Express program are both done by your local lender. The Express Bridge is a disaster program, maximum of $25,000. The Express loan itself, line of credit, is up to $1 million, but it is a way, it has streamlined documentation, so it is a way to get funds to help you then possibly open up your doors and help you with expenses that weren't covered by the PPP program. Keep in mind, your lender will tell you then what exact documentation you're going to need for that, what the repayment terms are going to be for that, and what the interest rates are going to be for that. So with that, that was kind of the most updated information this last week. And let's see what's in. It looks like we have some Q&As and some chat. So let's just get right into it.
Okay, here is kind of our first question, and we've got a bunch of different types of questions here. And again, we do want to encourage everyone to ask your specific questions. This is really the time to do that, of what really impacts your business or organization. So we have a question in regards to the PPP loan that they used their 2019 dollars payroll to determine what the loan was, but it looks like in 2020, they're actually busier than they were in 2019. So the payroll is actually more than it was in 2019. So maybe there was a question of, you know, how much were they impacted by the COVID issues, you know, in that way. But now that they've gotten this, what should they return the funds? Should they, is it enough that they can just use for payroll? So there's a couple of different questions there, but maybe you can address that, where they're actually busier in 2020, but they have this PPP loan.
So the biggest question that somebody in that situation needs to ask yourself, that when you originally applied for this loan, you had to self-certify that you were economically impacted by COVID. And, you know, the majority of businesses have been. However, there are a sector of businesses that haven't been affected by COVID, and they're busier now than they ever have been. So would that type of business be eligible? No, because they really haven't been economically impacted by COVID. So if you feel that you have not been economically impacted and you really cannot justify self-certifying that statement, my recommendation is that we have come out with guidance as far as how you are to return those funds without being penalized and without looking at some sort of a fine. And that was the safe harbor rules that came out on treasury.gov. Those came out, and I do believe that you should sit down with your lender, review those safe harbor rules and regulations, and then also make sure that you can legitimately say that you have been impacted, economically impacted by COVID. If not, my recommendation is that you would return the funds.
So as far as guidance, Pam, you suggest to go to treasury.gov, and
Yeah.
we will post that in the chat just for all of those online resources.
And,
So-
and each of the new interim final rules that have come out have a descriptor on them along with the date, and you'll look under the descriptor called safe harbor, because that's what you're dealing with. Is, you know what if I got this money and I don't need it? And then work closely with your lender, because your lender will help you then navigate you down that path of how to return the funds.
Okay, and that would be the situation. Would there be a situation where perhaps the loan, there was perceived need for funds when the loan was submitted, but then afterwards, once the loan was received, the funds were no longer deemed to be necessary? Is there a situation in that situation?
Right. I believe that that's why Treasury came out with this safe harbor and SBA came out with the safe harbor rule. Because at the beginning of this, everybody was shut down. Everybody was at staying home. Nobody knew, what this was going to look like. Anxiety levels were extremely high. The fear of running out of PPP money was high and real. Gosh, if I don't apply, I'm never ever going to get it. And so I can understand the methodology of going in and applying for that PPP loan, but then I get it, and the reality is, hey, I really don't need it. Don't keep it then, because you are subjecting yourself then to using that money, and you shouldn't have. So then go ahead and return it. I mean, nobody's judging you on that. It's just, take that extra step then to return that money back.
Okay, thank you, Pam. And one of the things is, it's now that we're really looking at the forgiveness, and everyone wants to be fully forgiven, obviously, with as much as possible with that PPP loan. Those guidelines are a little unknown about how to, what do you do? How do you submit this? How do you make sure? What kind of advice would you give to businesses of how they should be looking at their finances, or what direction they should be giving their bookkeepers now when it comes to tracking expenses?
Well, I think, our key takeaway always on anything that any of the lenders do is document, document, document. So if that goes for the lenders, that's going to go for audit. It's very hard back in and recall all of the different types of expenses that we had. And so go ahead and make sure that you document, your file and justify your expenses. But, if you've gotten your PPP loan and you needed it and you overshot it, you overshot the dollar amount that you needed. Final guidance has not yet come out on what the forgiveness portion of this looks like. We're hoping that we're going to get that shortly, and we were told we should have it within the next 2 to 3 weeks as far as the forgiveness rules and regulations. But right now, document your expenses. If you have any money left over, the rule at the very beginning clearly stated that ineligible expenses are going to be able to be financed at 1% over a 2-year period of time. So we know that part of the rule. What we don't know is what it really looks like, or what that forgiveness formula is really going to look like. And hopefully that guidance is going to come out shortly.
So really right now, the direction is to really document it, keep everything separately until those rules come out.
Right.
Let's go back to the EIDL application. Another question is, when will the EIDL application be opened, and where can they find criteria for the EIDL program?
So the EIDL program, that is an SBA program. The PPP program was under the CARES Act, okay? The EIDL program is actually under SBA's disaster program. The criteria for the EIDL program, you can just go into sba.gov and put, economic injury disaster loan. We call it EIDL so much that I don't even know if anybody knows really what it stands for, but it's economic injury disaster loan regulation, and it will pull up for you and you can read that. The EIDL portal is not open currently. Only for ag related industry. When will it be open? Will it be open? I don't know. We haven't had any additional guidance on that.
And right now too, it's only just for ag related businesses.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
great. Another question in regards to the EIDL advance is, I received a $3,000 EIDL advance on April 25th and a PPP loan on May 7th. Do I pay off the $3,000 EIDL and then use the PPP? I did get, let me finish this and then if I need to repeat it. I did use some of it for payroll before they got the PPP. Can I use the PPP for van insurance, since I don't pay health insurance to all of my part-time seasonal employees. It seems like there's a lot going on there. So maybe we can just kind of unpack that. So receiving both the EIDL and the PPP. So it looks like they got the EIDL first and then the PPP. So
Okay.
do they pay off the EIDL and then use the PPP? But because they did use some of the EIDL for payroll before they got the PPP.
Okay, so let's break that one down first. So at the beginning, let's just kind of back up a little bit and do some history here. At the beginning, the PPP wasn't even approved. So the only thing that you, the business owner, had to apply to was the EIDL program. And part of that EIDL program was the advance portion and the loan. So it's not uncommon that you did get the EIDL advance prior to your PPP. However, when you do the forgiveness portion of your PPP, you're going to have to disclose to your lender at that point in time that you received EIDL advance money. They're going to take that EIDL advance money then and subtract it off of the proceeds or the forgivable amount of your PPP. So there's nothing you need to do about it. It's not a wrong thing because that was the process that was in place at that time. But now what you need to do though is just disclose that to your lender when it comes time for the forgiveness portion of it, so that they'll take off the proceeds of that EIDL advance off of your PPP. And then I think I also heard us saying under the EIDL or under the PPP, there are specific guidelines of what can be factored into the forgiveness portion of it. My recommendation right now is that you document any of your, what you think are potential items. So for example, if you're in a lease or you have a mortgage and you have a lease payment, that is an eligible expense. Be getting your lease agreement, handy, because you're going to need that on the forgiveness portion of it. As far as utilities, what utilities are forgivable? Anything that you have entered a contract into prior to February 15th, and anything that has been deducted on your tax returns. A deductible expense is for utilities is considered then an eligible expense under PPP, as long as you have the documentation. And what is that documentation? Well, if you put it on your tax return, that's going to be pretty solid documentation then that that's an eligible expense. As far as car insurance, no, that would not be an eligible expense.
Okay, because I think that was the question. It sounds like it's a vehicle for the business and it would be specific to insurance.
Right. Insurance or fuel. We've had that question before too, and no.
Okay, so if that didn't answer that question, if you could put that back in the chat. Let me do another one and then we'll jump over because we have some more in the Q&A here. We are granted a PPP loan and we're trying to tiptoe through the hoops to stay within the guidelines. I think everyone is doing that.
Yeah.
The specific question is regarding paying employees with the PPP loan. I'm being told that we can only pay our employees the average of what they were paid last year. So luckily our body shop has enough work to keep everyone busy. If our commission and hourly guys earn more than what they averaged last year, can we pay them what they earn, or are they capped at their average paycheck from last year?
No, you can pay them what they're earned. We just needed here's what happened is February 15th was the start of the covered period, right? And so, depending upon when your fiscal year starts and stops, a lot of people didn't, there was, where do we start from? How do we even begin to navigate down what a salary could be? Because we're only a month and a half into the year. What are we going to use? And so then the guidance was, well, use what use your historical data then. But if your payroll is actually higher, keep in mind, only 75% of that loan, or at least 75% of that loan, can be used for payroll. So if you use it all for payroll, then you have nothing left over for your other expenses. But use your reality. Use the income and just document it. Document that if Pam Selberg earned $9 an hour in 2019. And yet now in 2020, you can't say, it's what my income was as of February 15th. Okay, because what the government doesn't want to have is that all of a sudden now employers get this PPP loan and they think, wow, we're going to give everybody a raise. No, that wasn't the intent of it. The intent of the program was to keep employees retained and keep them employed at their salary at the time of the covered period. So whatever my salary was at the covered period, it's more than likely what your salary is now for those people. So whatever their income was on February 15th, you can justify that that is their payroll then for the remaining of the covered period, which goes through your 8 weeks, of eligibility whenever you got your first advance. Did that make sense? Or
Yeah,
if it didn't,
if it does, yeah, you can definitely, follow up with a question.
Okay, Pam, we've got a question here that says we are a destination marketing organization, a DMO, 501c6, and applied for the EIDL loan. EIDL, I guess they didn't say. We've received this $10,000 on April 23rd, but have not heard anything about the loan. Rumor is that DMOs are low on the priority list for loans. Is this true?
No, it has nothing to do with the type of business. It has everything to do with the volume. Okay, so what happened is the advances were something that could be easily pushed out the door. And now the loans themselves, each individual loan has to be reviewed by a loan specialist. And so that is taking longer. SBA has been inundated with these loan applications. And so it's just going to be a matter of time. I know that the agency, we are addressing, trying to, staff for the volume that is out there. But if your application begins with a 3, if you've gotten a couple of emails from SBA disaster, you're in the system, you just need to kind of hang out there. And I'm sorry, everybody's in the same boat, but it has nothing to do with your business. It has to do with the amount of volume.
Thanks, Pam. Another question is, my office is behind my house, so I have the electric bill in their personal name. So my company just pays half the bill each month and a business check is paid to me personally. Is that eligible for payment of utilities on a PPP loan?
It's whatever you deduct on your taxes for your business.
So it really goes back to the tax question. Okay. Let's see here. Whereas where does the 1% interest play in this if you don't use it for employees?
Okay, that's going to come at the end. That's that forgiveness portion that we're kind of cloudy about right now. But at the end of your 8-week period of time, you're going to bring your documentation into your lender. They're going to use your documentation as their guide in determining forgiveness. If there's anything left over, then that's the 1% that's going to be carried back then with the bank.
Okay, great. Another EIDL question here. I received a $4,000 EIDL, but still haven't received any communication if this was a loan or it needs to be paid back as the advance. So is there any way to go over guidelines or how to determine what that was?
Right, they know it's the EIDL because if you haven't signed a loan, a note, or promissory note, then you know it's not the loan. Okay. So anytime you're going to make a loan with SBA, you would actually sign loan documents with that. So, I mean, if you haven't done that, then that was the advance money.
Okay. So just to clarify that that's the money that does not need to be paid back.
Right.
Great. Dina, I think you have a question.
Yeah, Pam, this one is on the EIDL loan. How can the funds be used? Can they pay off existing loans on equipment or apply the dollars to those loans?
No, you cannot refinance any debt, and it's not for expansion. It is simply for working capital.
Okay. What can the PPP be used for in order to be forgiven? Is it just 75% on payroll and utilities? Where would someone find where the delineation is? And Pam, we went over that a little bit, so I don't know if this was something that came in afterwards, but the 75% is payroll, the 25% is really on those forgivable expenses. And is there anywhere that we could point people to that? Is that on treasury.gov?
Yes, it's on treasury.gov, and it was one of the very first interim final rules that came out. So hold on, let me see if I can. It was one of the very first interim final rule that comes out, and it says business loan program changes paycheck protection program. And it has everything in there as far as eligibility, documentation, what is ineligible, how to calculate the dollar amount. So it was one of the first documents that came out, and it's going to look, and I know this is backwards, but it's going to be looking like a document, and it's several pages long, but it's right out on treasury.gov.
And is that, just to confirm, you go to the red bar at the top of treasury.gov and click on that? And
That's
there
right.
really is an awesome resource for people to go out there, and there's just a lot of information out there.
Yeah,
So.
and that's where I get my information. In fact, I checked on it right before I came on because it changes daily. Sometimes it changes twice a daily. And so I go to treasury.gov at least twice a day.
Gotcha. Another question is, how will audits be handled with regard to forgiveness? Do you get forgiveness first and then have the audit? That may change the forgiveness.
I don't know. I'm just being honest with everybody. I'm so black and white. You know, I could come up with some funky answer, but it really, I don't know. We don't know yet. You know, we're waiting for that forgiveness guideline. And all I can say is we all know the basis of the rule. We all know the 75% is payroll, 25% are those miscellaneous items, you know. So if you're within that guideline, you're going to be fine. You know, it's when things start getting a little bit cloudy is when people try to enter in things. And I always tell everybody, you know what, use what feels right. If it doesn't feel right, more than likely it's not right. You know, so read that guideline out there and kind of, you know, stay within that guideline and you're going to be fine.
I have kind of an involved question here. So as a woman sole proprietor, Schedule C income and expenses, I submitted to Loan Builder, which was affiliated with PayPal, and received a small PPP forgivable loan. Can you share any insight as to when SBA will have an official form for sole proprietor independent contractors to use to submit to a lender like Loan Builder for forgiveness? She said she tried to use Wells Fargo and the local credit union, and they weren't accepting the PPP applications unless you had already established business checking accounts. So she didn't do that.
That's okay. I mean, PayPal was an acceptable vendor of ours. PayPal, Cabbage, I mean, a variety of them out there were acceptable vendors of ours. Each of those vendors have to follow the same guidelines as what national lenders would, or local and community lenders do. So everybody has to follow the same guidelines. Just because you used, you know, a vendor doesn't mean that they're not going to have to, you know, have the forgivable portion of you. And again, they're probably waiting for the guideline as well. And I'm assuming more than likely in that case, they're going to submit to you a form that you're going to have to fill out. You're going to have to certify that, and then you're going to submit that back to them to determine your forgivable eligibility.
And again, it's also just good advice to keep an eye on what is going to be published as far as forgiveness regulations and processes. But they would follow the same rules, get the same information that any large lender or credit union or local bank would get.
Yep.
Okay. In addition, as of these dates, this seems to be information. These seem to be information points that are publicly available for. Wait a minute. I'm not sure if this. As of these dates, these seem to be information points that are publicly available for IS Form 1040 Schedule C, sole proprietor, contractor for forgiveness. Okay, it looks like she's just mentioning this, so I'm not sure this is actually a question here. So it's just stated, and this just shows what the eligible payroll costs. So never mind, that's actually not a question.
Well, she's right. I mean, whoever that person is correct. There are several documents out there, because keep in mind, this program was thrown out there, and then all these specific eligibility questions came in after that. So then we addressed, the specific questions. So you have the main document that talks about eligibility, all of that, and then we got down into the weeds a little bit on self-employed, on partnerships, what is all required in those scenarios. So they're correct. There are a variety of documents out there. Read the headers to see what would maybe pertain to you. Click on that, and then that's going to give you the information for your particular scenario.
Okay, great. Thank you. What can the, let's see. Let me see. I think this was, oh, I think those were the last two. Those are our last two. Dina, do you have any more?
I do. I have one here. How many months do they have in order to use the PPP loan funds for payroll?
You have 8 weeks, and your 8 weeks start the date of your distribution. So whenever you got your money from the lender, that's when your 8 weeks start. So you have 8 weeks.
So if someone has applied and they have not received their PPP funds, their clock isn't ticking yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
And let's everybody know there's still money out there. We thought this second round was going to go so quickly, and it hasn't. So if anybody knows anybody that hasn't applied, it's not too late. Please, please have them apply. This is a forgivable loan. This is a grant. And so please help these people, especially now when we're looking at reopening. This could be additional seed money to help these businesses then, you know, navigate down what does it look like now that we're opening, and help them with, you know, not at least worrying about their payroll, worrying about, you know, and then they can use their money for other costs. So please tell people that there's still money available.
Okay. And then to continue with that, so what about the advance? How long do they have for that?
The advance, there is no time.
Okay.
I mean, you can use the advance, whatever. There wasn't any timeline attached to that, but it was to be used for payroll.
Okay, and then will a 501c6 be eligible to apply for the PPP?
No. 501c3s is all. And then again, that is also in that first interim final rule when it first came out and talks about eligibility.
Pam, here's another specific question. My payroll period was April 26th through May 9th, and I received the PPP money on May 7th. Can I pay for that payroll, which included days when I didn't have the PPP money yet?
Okay, so we don't look at people's, you know, specific payroll start and cutoff day. We look at 8 weeks. So you, the employer, are going to have to, you know, ration that money based on that 8 weeks. You know, we don't look at the 15th and the 30th, for example. We look at the date of your first disbursement and 8 weeks from that. So what you're going to have to do then, I think I recall her saying that, or them saying that they got their money on May 7th. So you'll have 8 weeks to use that money, you know, for your payroll, whatever that May 7th is, and 8 weeks going forward, regardless of when your payroll starts and stops. It's 8 weeks in there, and you're just going to have to verify it. And if you have pay stubs, you know, that's going to be more than your justification right there. I wouldn't use the pay stubs from April 26th because you didn't get your money until May 7th. I would use your pay stubs starting with that includes that May 7th timeline. And even if it goes farther than the 8 weeks, at least you show that, okay, this was the 8 weeks of, you know, a payroll. So more than likely when you would show forgiveness in that scenario, you would probably show 10 weeks worth of payroll, but you're only going to use 8 weeks of that average in your forgiveness calculation, because we don't look at the 15th or the 30th. It's simply 8 weeks.
That makes sense. A question about the EIDL. Is there any portion of the EIDL that is forgivable? And maybe if you could talk just a little bit about the difference, even though it's not available for most businesses now, between the EIDL advance and the EIDL loan. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Right. So the EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, has always been an SBA disaster program. That's the root of our disaster program. It's always been there. The EIDL loan portion is what's always been there. Let me put it that way. We, the SBA, because PPP had not yet been approved yet, we in SBA said, how can we get money out the intent was, let me back that up. The intent is that we were going to try to get this seed money out quickly for payroll until the PPP program was approved. So SBA had this program called the EIDL loan that's always been there. And we then attached to it the EIDL advance. The EIDL advance was up to $10,000. It then was determined that it was going to be $1,000 per employee. The EIDL advance money is the forgivable amount. The EIDL loan program is actually a loan, and that's on repayment terms. And right now, unless you're in the ag industry, you cannot apply for EIDL. EIDL is closed. Okay, so what they need to do, if an employee doesn't want to come back, you just have to make sure that you've documented your file. First of all, the intent of this program was that you bring all your people back. The government wanted to pay you, the employer, your grant money versus having your, your employee collect unemployment. So you need to document in your file that you've made the offer to bring that employee back. If that employee doesn't want to come back, that's between the employee and now the state of South Dakota, okay? All you do is document in your file that you offered them the opportunity to come back.
And then when you're talking about documenting in your file, is this a file that you would be providing then to your lender once to talk about forgiveness, or is this just when you're saying that? I think
at the end, when this, and again, we don't know what the forgiveness document is going to look like, but I think in the end they're going to want to. It's going to be based on number of employees and payroll. That's what it's going to look like.
Gotcha. Okay. I know we've had some questions about that, and as we get closer to this June 30th date, when this is going to start, I think there's going to be just a lot more questions, and I think everyone will feel when there's a little more certainty of what that looks like. I think that it'll be more clear.
Again, Michelle and Dina, that's why I think it's important that we just do these weekly, because when we know that information comes out so rapidly, that we'll continue to do these and hopefully get you guys the information on as quick as we can. And I know our district office is doing these as well, because we don't want to leave people in the dark. We're trying to give you guys the information as quickly as what we receive it.
Absolutely. And you are doing an awesome job, Pam, and we're so grateful. And just so everyone knows, next Tuesday, same time, 10 a.m., Pam's going to be back. So we will make sure to get that information out to everyone, and it will be also on our SDCEO Facebook page. So another question, with the PPP program, I have a small amount. Last year, I was not on Medicare, so my health insurance costs were not on my tax return. Would they count for expenses? So health insurance costs were not on our tax return for 2019, but they are for 2020. So would those count in that 25% bucket, health insurance costs?
I don't have the exact answer on that yet, because I think that will be addressed in the forgiveness portion of it. All I can say right now is keep your documentation, okay? The guideline does state that health insurance is an eligible item, so just keep that documentation, and we'll know more when it comes down to the forgiveness side of it.
Okay, thank you. And we'll make a note of that, that we kind of keep that out there. And then we had a question of what happens on June 30th.
No,
Could you explain that?
June 30th, when this program first came out, the covered period was February 15th to June 30th. And, I don't know, fireworks are going to happen on July 3rd, I hear, and out Mount Rushmore.
Really?
So who knows? No, I don't know. That's just the end of the covered period. That was the end of the PPP program's covered period.
Right. So here's a question too, because there is still funds available, that 8-week period will supersede June 30th. So in those situations, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Right. So really, you have up to till June 30th to apply, but it's on a first come, first serve. And so that was the whole issue when this first came out. I mean, everybody remembers, round number 1, how quickly that money came. We were under the assumption that round 2 was even going to go faster. Well, now we have this money left over. So typically it's still out there. So if somebody didn't want to apply and wanted to risk it and not apply until, you know, June 20th, June 28th, they could possibly do that because they have 8 weeks then still that they could use that money. But it's first come, first serve. So if the money's not there, then you could risk not having the money.
Right.
You know,
So
not
now's
applying
really,
for the money.
right.
And-
So now is like the time.
Right. That's exactly right. I wouldn't risk it, but
Yeah, I am just putting into the chat that we will set up next week's webinar. And so if you could go to facebook.com/SDCEO in the events, we will have that link and registration information there. So Pam, what do you think is going to happen in the next week?
I don't know. I'm hoping we get some forgiveness guideline. I really do. I mean, there's two things that are on my wish list if you want to know. One is that I hope I hear that more people are getting the EIDL loans processed. And the other, you know, wish list for me is that we would get, you know, some guidance on the forgiveness side of it. And you know, again, like I told you guys, I look at that treasury.gov twice a day just to see what's all out there.
Great. We'll give everyone just a minute or two if you have any other follow-up questions. Again, all of our contact information is in the chat, so feel free. Pam's cell number is in there, her email, my contact information if you'd like to set up a time to do some business planning or business model review. If there's anyone else that we can, you know, help as far as, you know, moving your business forward. Pam, what if there is a business owner out there that hasn't done anything? They're just here as really, you know, they maybe, because it is overwhelming and it is uncertain and it is a very stressful time for all of our business owners. But what advice would you give them now?
First of all, I need to tell everybody is don't fear the process. Don't fear that you're going to do something wrong. SBA is not a got you agency. We never have been. We've never been that way with the lenders. So we really are here to help you navigate through the process. But if you haven't done anything, I think the first step is that they need to reach out to the Michelles and the Dinas of the world and first of all, get a plan of action, but do it very quickly. We have no guarantee how much longer this grant money is going to be out there. And it is a great opportunity to try to assist during these, you know, uncertain times. So please reach out to your Women's Business Center, reach out to the Small Business Development Center, reach out to the Veterans Business, you know, Center. Though they are the best resources right now in these times of uncertainty to help you navigate what your next step is going to be. But don't wait. Don't wait.
Thanks, Pam. Hey, I did have another question, and I think we had talked about it before because there unfortunately isn't clarity out there, and it's how will the audits be handled with regard to forgiveness? Does you get the forgiveness first and then have an audit that may change the forgiveness? And I think that that's the question that's kind of on the table of how we're not really sure what that's going to look like yet.
Well, I think that the audits, well, first of all, I don't know, you know, but I can tell you that the forgiveness, and I don't know what you mean by audits, like what audit? The audit from SBA, you mean, or the audit from the lender, or you feel that that's called an audit that you have to go in? I guess maybe I need more clarification on what audit means.
Yeah, and I might, and David, you had asked that on the chat there. I'm not really exactly sure. If you'd like to, and Pam, if it's okay, if perhaps he could follow up with you. Pam's contact information is in the chat, her email and her cell. Let's see, potential audit that the Treasury Secretary talked about.
I only can see like 3 words, you know, on my
gotcha.
screen.
Yeah.
Well, so Dave, what I'm going to tell you about that is we all know, because, you know, the news had it, you know, very, very quickly after that round 1, how many ineligible businesses qualified for the PPP, and it was unacceptable, and it should have been unacceptable. that happened. So Treasury, that's why Treasury went in and did the safe harbor rule. You can go to treasury.gov and read that to allow people that, got the money and were not eligible an opportunity to repay that money back without a fine. Treasury's also come out and said that any loan over $2 million will be audited. So we know that that's a certain, that is going to happen. Any loan over 2 million is going to be audited. Other than that, there's nothing to fear if you've documented your file and you've used the money for eligible purposes. And really where you're going to know that is at the end when it comes time for forgiveness. If you have eligible, if you have items that you thought were going to be eligible and they're not, my suggestion is finance it over 1%, then finance it over, that 2-year period of time. And then there's no question at all, what you used your funds for. But as far as, what we know today about the audit, it's anything over 2 million. And there's that safe harbor rule out there that if you feel that you received the funds and they weren't eligible, what steps you need to do to return them.
But thank you so much, Pam. And I know that, just there is that uncertainty that's out there, but again, going to treasury.gov and looking at some of those documents. I think that is all of our questions, Pam. Thank you so much again. We will share the link to next week's webinar, Tuesday, same time, on Zoom. And Pam, is there anything else you'd like to just leave us with? And we will go ahead and wrap up.
No, just that, if you're talking out there on Main Street, business owners to other business owners that have not done anything, please encourage them to apply. There is still money, encourage them to apply. And if anybody has a fear of applying, have them reach out to the Women's Business Center, have them reach out to me so that we can at least guide them to get this money in their hands and to help them during this uncertain time, because it is a great program.
I was actually helped a few people, and I went through different lenders then because I was kind of the contact. And the bankers at 3 different banks that I dealt with were just kind. They just want to help. It wasn't your typical, there's just so much compassion there too. And the application process, I went through one of the last ones with the newer questions, and it was just easy. The questions they're asking are nothing that you as a business owner wouldn't know. So yeah, it's an easy process.
Don't you all think, if we all step back and we look at this, and I think this is a really time of being non-judgmental. I don't know about you guys, but when I go out, I wear a mask. If I see people that don't, I try not to judge them. That's their own personal, that's their own personal decision. But I will tell you this: the lenders have been overwhelmed. The lenders have been working round the clock, but they see the need. And thank you, Dina, for that, because I do think that they truly want to try to get this money out and get it used as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Pam. Thanks, Dina. And thanks everyone for joining us. This will be available for recording or to listen to afterwards. If you want to catch up anything or listen to it again or share this, we welcome you to do that. And keep an eye at SDCEO at our Facebook page for our next webinar. Thank you, Pam. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.